Ladies and gentlemen, Ronald again back here with a little quick crypto update, which I wasn't planning on doing, but hell, we got a hell of a crash today, so fuck it, why not? Just bring this up to date. We can see the drama that's been unfolding. So we were cruising along. We've seen a couple dips in the last month or so. Some of these were larger than others. And then it seemed like we were going up pretty well. And then last night, December 3rd, we had a massive drawdown, right? Like a little over a 20% correction here. Bitcoin went as low as, I believe it was like 41K, 42K, something like that. What is this? That's not quite accurate. It went below that as well on some exchanges. This is all on Coinbase, but pretty significant drawdown. I think my account went as low as 41K, so big old drop from about 51. So I mean that was really like $10,000 in like a couple hours. Really significant dip, and it kind of reemphasizes the importance of having a little dry powder, a little money on the side to take advantage of these dips, especially because look at what we're seeing. Look at this recovery. We went pretty darn low, and then we're kind of shooting right back up. I did DCA in, so you got to buy the dip, right? You got to buy the dip. So I got a little bit extra Bitcoin, not a whole lot, maybe $100, $200. Ethereum, I got a good bit of Ethereum and a good bit more Solana. A lot more Solana than anything else at this point. At this point in the cycle, I'm really focusing on my strongest convictions, Solana, Bitcoin, Ethereum. I'm letting Cardano just kind of accumulate itself, staking on my Yoroi wallet. And then, I use my USDC as mostly my, money on the side on the exchange to buy a little bit more in. Polygon, I got a little bit extra. Polygon, I think, has really good prospects. It's pretty undervalued. I'm a big fan of Polygon, but I'm more of a fan of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana right now. I think I got just like maybe $100 of Avalanche, and tiny bit of Crow. I'm a huge fan of Crow's marketing and how heavily they're pushing themselves publicly. But let's just go ahead and address the elephant in the room there, this big old dip. What the hell happened? Well, honestly, I was working out when my phone got a notification about, everything that's going on. And it was just this, I saw a number, I was like, 47,000 Bitcoin. That has to be wrong, right? That's like an outdated notification. That couldn't be right. It was right. And it went even lower than that, which was really exciting, honestly. But I basically just checked. I was like, well, what day is it today? It's Friday, right? So most likely culprit immediately jumps to mind. Options expiration date, and this is very much what happened, right? This is very much what happened. So what, in the last 24 hours, $2.39 billion of liquidations in the crypto market, and what, almost 100 million of that is Bitcoin. Again, another 76 million of ETH, XRP. We got a massive amount of liquidations in the two biggest chains, and on different exchanges. I mean, lot of long liquidations. Basically, in December, I think everybody was going 100K in December. Must be really safe to use leverage and options and trying to make it as rich as possible off of the expectation that we're going to 100K. But remember, these bull runs don't just go straight up. Every single bull run in history where we saw Bitcoin go parabolic, everybody imagines it as just this big, smooth on-ramp. But there are literally 30, 28% drawbacks in that parabolic run-up. The parabolic run-up is not a one, straight line. It's not like it's just 10% every single day consistently. There's going to be these big drawbacks. And because people banked on that so heavily and played with leverage, $2 billion long liquidation at around an average strike price of 48,000 last night around 10 p.m. That's what happened. I mean, look at that. That's a massive amount of leverage getting wrecked. This is why you don't play with leverage. This is really it. Because, yeah, I still think 100K Bitcoin is going to happen. Is going to happen this month, next month, not super sure. I think probably this month, but we'll see. Maybe not this month. But if it goes down enough in between now and then, and you're playing with leverage, 10, 20x leverage, and, it goes down for like a day, if you're buying and holding, you're set. If you're like me, you're set. But if you're playing with this heavy leverage, you're going to get wrecked. You're going to get wrecked in large numbers. These liquidations are essentially just a cascade. As more people get wrecked, the price goes down more, and even further people get wrecked. People are just getting destroyed, right? But we've seen this before. Anthony Pompliano really kind of succinctly put this nicely. Leverage is a hell of a drug. That's really what it is. Leverage in the crypto market causes a lot of this volatility, these massive drawdowns. And he reinforces what I just said there. Historically, Bitcoin bull markets have had many 20% plus drawdowns. And we're currently experiencing the sixth drawdown of 20% or more in 2021. And the third of more than 30%. Act like you've been here before, right? You've been here before. If you've been here since any time this year, you've been here before. Multiple times. For months at a time earlier this year. Some people thought that was the bear market. It wasn't, right? And I still don't think we're truly in the bear market. You gotta be real careful with this leverage though. And, if you're buying and holding, buying the dips, just like El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, he bought 150 at 48K, another 100 at 47K. I mean, just incredible. So El Salvador is going hard on Bitcoin right now. So that's fantastic. Everybody that's selling their Bitcoin, you're just enriching the nation of El Salvador, which, I mean, if that's what you want to do, you can do that. Personally, I'd rather enrich myself. Wow, that's a lot of Bitcoin. So go El Salvador, I guess. But you really got to keep in mind, when in doubt, zoom out, right? When we're talking about on the day scale, somebody corrected this and said, on the day scale, you can go down, 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 down. Absolutely. Absolutely, you can see that. But you got to zoom out and look at the long term, right? We're going up in the long term. Even if it goes down hard like this, nobody's going to remember a day like this in a decade when really what they're going to see is this parabolic move. And then everybody is going to forget that these types of things happen during the bull run, right? Absolute nonsense. But ultimately, Plan B still thinks that stock to flow model is on track for 100K this month. Are we going to hit 100K this month? We'll see. We'll see. We might be hitting a lengthening cycle, and we see this, maybe Q1 2022. I think we are going to see more extended cycle. At this point, obviously his floor model has missed the 98K last month. So one of the predictions so far these last few months has been wrong. He was right the last 2 months before that. 98K was clearly did not happen at all. But, that's the floor model. That is not stock to flow. Remember, stock to flow is different from the floor model, right? And we're still potentially on track for 100K this month. You can hope for 100K this month, but don't let that hope get you to a point where you're using 20x leverage on 100K this month. Because if there's another drawdown of 30-40%, you're going to get liquidated. Even if you might be right in the end, you can get liquidated. You can be right and still be wrong. So I would say staying away from leverage might be a good idea here. But that's Plan B. Now, that's what really happened. The market here, Bitcoin, there was a lot of liquidations. A lot of people got wrecked, and it really affected the market. But as you can see here, I mean, we're seeing like a V-shaped recovery here, right? You got this big old nadir, and now we're just shooting right back up because the fundamentals have not changed. The fundamentals have not changed. The bull run is still on, I would say. I think the bull run is very much still on. To kind of round this out, let's talk about Ethereum, right? So Ethereum's high gas fees are kind of a problem that we've been kind of dealing with. It may have even lent a little bit to the resiliency of Ethereum in terms of the gas fees being too high to even sell, right? So it didn't drop so crazily. I think we were at about 4,000, maybe briefly below 4,000. And, it's people are making little jibes about like, part of the resiliency is just that you can't even afford to sell your Ethereum because it's so expensive. Well, this really has to be addressed. And I think finally Vitalik and the boys are starting to move in that direction. Because if the gas costs are this high, then Ethereum becomes a chain for the rich. And as much as you have these solutions down the road, chains like Solana, chains like Matic, Algorand, all these other layer ones that are popping up with lower fees are going to eat your lunch. And at some point, you have a first mover effect. I think that's going to carry Ethereum in the near future. But if they don't get on this soon enough, that's not going to be enough to save them. So Vitalik recently proposed this whole EIP-4488 short-term solution where if I had to put it into 2 words very succinctly, it's essentially just price fixing. That's essentially what he's proposing here. He's trying to limit the call data cost from 16 to 3 gas per byte, putting a gap on call data to kind of put a programmed limit in on gas fees. Now, this is interesting. So it's essentially price fixing the big gas fees. Right, and this is very much a short-term solution because ultimately there are other knock-on effects of doing something like this, right? And the biggest one that I would point out here is that you could potentially be adding 3 terabytes a year to the size of the blockchain. To put that into perspective, the current Ethereum blockchain is just a little over 1 terabyte, right? And that could cause a cascading centralization effect on Ethereum. In terms of just kind of, there's going to be fewer and fewer potentially like miners, or in this case stakers, that will be able to actually handle the entire chain, which will, we'll be able to offset these things with like sharding. But in order to really offset the data, because basically if you decrease the call data on gas fees, you're going to be able to put more transactions into a block and increase the block size, and then you increase the rate at which you're adding information to the blockchain overall. Now, they are saying theoretically this would be more like 250 to 1,000 gigabytes per year as opposed to 3 terabytes, but that's still a lot. That's still a large increase in how quickly we're adding to Ethereum's total chain size. So this is very much a Band-Aid. But you could potentially use this as a bridge towards a utilization of ZK rollups and then eventually sharding and proof of stake. So it might be worth doing. Realistically, we should have already gotten to ETH2 and sharding by now. ETH2 was actually supposed to happen shortly after Ethereum 1's launch, which has clearly not happened. Clearly not, right? So yeah, I mean, we really got to get this moving if we want Ethereum to maintain a dominant market position for much longer. Because we have these killers like Solana that are absolutely wrecking people. And ultimately, this first mover advantage is what's helping Ethereum stay ahead of Solana. And at this point, but you also got to realize Cardano was a first mover on top of Solana. And if you look at Cardano's roadmap, they eventually plan on getting all these things, right? Hydra is supposed to scale them to 1 to 2 million TPS. And one of their later eras is supposed to add proof of history. And so they're basically trying to long-term become Solana on steroids. That's their plan. But it's taking so long for them to execute on that plan that until recently, they didn't even have smart contracts. And ultimately, with Sunday Swap's deck supposedly going in testnet as of tomorrow, and then supposedly trying to be functional and main by like next week, potentially. I don't know if the mainnet is supposed to be functional by next week, but it's a DEX with Cardano. They're essentially catching up to a lot of where the other smart contract platforms have been for years at this point. And yeah, if they really at this point have put a fire under themselves to try and parallelize the development of Hydra and make that a huge priority. They were first trying to shrug off the idea that they needed all those TPS, because ultimately TPS in real life, even if you're capable of 50,000, Solana is capable of 50,000 but their real-life TPS is always less than a dozen at any given time, most of the time on their blockchain, because they don't really need that much TPS in order to function on a day-to-day basis. Eventually, these TPS numbers will become much, much more relevant as their blockchain sizes up and goes to scale, right? You got to reach scale before you hit that TPS limit. Ethereum has scaled. They've gone past the point where that TPS is extremely relevant. And so they got to step it up is what I'm saying. They got to do this a little faster. Ethereum needs to keep up. Cardano needs to really start to go over. And they're doing the whole peer review thing, and that's a really unique concept, and I like it. But it might crush them in the end. It might crush them. They need to keep up. It is kind of important. So we'll see. But the short message on this whole video is have some money in reserve, buy the dip, look at long-term trends, not just what happens in the course of a day. None of that's financial advice. Stay frosty.